Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a few new strong off-meta picks for patch 7.2. Now these champions are pretty strong right now in my opinion, but they aren't really played very often, and due to a few changes that happened in this patch and due to the meta, I think that they are really strong picks if you can play them correctly. So with that being said, let's get started. So the first champion we're going to take a look at in this video is going to be down in the support role, and it's going to be Lulu support. So Lulu actually did get some pretty good buffs in this patch to her Q and her passive. So the changes that she got to her Q are, it got a 10 mana cost decrease at each rank, and then her passive, it got a damage increase as well. So with these changes, or with these buffs to Lulu, and right now with this meta being a very heavy dive meta, and with the meme being that 80 carries are so weak this season, I actually think that Lulu support is in a pretty good spot right now. We're seeing so many dive champions being played and 80 carries just die super fast, and Lulu is actually one of the best supports that you can play, maybe other than Janna, to protect your 80 carry and keep them safe in those team fights. So for example, if you're going up against someone like a Hecarim or a Rengar or a Vi, then if they try to dive on your back line and they get onto your 80 carry, then you can ult your 80 carry, you can polymorph the dive champion that's trying to get onto your 80 carry, and you can also like speed your carry champions up with your W. So right now I would actually recommend trying out Lulu in the support role, especially if the enemy team does have some of those champions that are just going to try to get onto your 80 carry and assassinate them in those team fights. Now the next champions here that we're going to take a look at are going to be Talon, Pantheon, and Quinn. Now all three of these champions, the reason that I'm talking about all three of them at once is because they're all benefiting from the changes to lethality as well as to Duskblade and Edge of Night. So all three of these champions, they do usually build the Duskblade and Edge of Night in their core build, and they also do build like pretty much all lethality items. So with those items and lethality getting buffed in this patch, these champions are super underrated right now, and they're actually really strong. I know that so far in this patch, Pantheon and Quinn, they have two of the highest win rates for top lane right now, and in this meta right now, in this top lane meta, we're seeing a lot of Camille being played, a lot of Yasuo. Pantheon is actually a super good counter to both of those champions due to the fact that he can poke them down really easily in the laning phase, and those champions do rely on auto attacks to deal a lot of their damage. So with the Pantheon passive, it just makes it very easy for you to trade against those champions in the laning phase. And then for Quinn right now in the top lane, she pretty much has a winning win rate against every single top laner besides Aurelia. So Aurelia is a champion that can do pretty well against Quinn just because she can jump on Quinn and just get that point and click stun off. And with Quinn in the laning phase, what you want to do is obviously poke down those opponents, and Aurelia is the only champion in the game that sort of benefits from being on lower HP. So therefore, if Aurelia gets her power spike, and even if you do poke her down a little bit, she can look to dive on you and just burst you down. But any other top laner right now, like any melee top laner, Quinn can just absolutely crap on in the laning phase, and then after she does win the laning phase, she can look to roam really well with her ultimate around the map. So I definitely think that Quinn is very underrated right now in the top lane. And then for Talon right now in the mid lane, you rarely see any Talon at all, and people just underestimate the amount of damage that this champion can do in the laning phase. He's a great pick right now against a lot of the AP mage champions because Talon is a burst assassin, and those AP mage champions can't really do much against him once he does finish the Maw, and once he does hit level 6. He even actually does have a pretty strong all-in in the early game now, and after playing Talon a little bit recently, I was actually surprised at how much damage he can do. Like with his Q in the laning phase, I was actually able to beat a Katarina just really easily in lane, because what you do in those AP matchups is you just rush your Maw, and as long as you can survive till you hit that level 6, or even if you can just find that time to go aggressive early in the laning phase, you can definitely win lane super easily with Talon. And then once it does reach those team fights, he's one of the best like one-shot assassins that you can play. 80 carries are just not going to be able to stay alive against you because you can easily sneak up on them. Like what you can do with Talon in a team fight is you can use your ultimate before the fight even starts, and the enemies won't be able to see you coming, so you'll just be able to jump on the opponent and burst them down, and they'll have no time to react at all. Now, the only champions that I would really try to avoid when playing as Talon in the mid lane are champions that can heavily poke you out in the laning phase, unless of course you are super confident in your Talon. So someone like an Anivia or a Xerath who can just easily poke you out, and even if you do try to engage on them in the laning phase, then Anivia can just stun you if you jump on her, and Xerath can also just stun you, so it's going to be hard for you to do much in those matchups, but pretty much any other matchup, as long as you can play it well, you can definitely do super well with Talon in this patch. And then the final champion that we're going to take a look at in this video is going to be another top laner, and it's going to be Kled. So Kled right now in the top lane, I feel like he's been pretty underrated for a few patches now, or at least for a little while. So in this meta right now in the top lane, we're seeing quite a bit of Yasuo, quite a bit of Riven being played. Kled actually does super well in those matchups, and he actually does do well in a lot of the meta matchups right now in the top lane. He's even started to see some play, or a little bit more play, in the pro scene over in Korea in this patch, so obviously they think he's pretty strong right now too, and I think that in this patch right now, if you can pick him against a Riven or a Yasuo and you know those matchups, then you can definitely win lane super hard, and he's another one of those good like roaming top lane champions too. He's very similar to Pantheon and to Quinn, because if you can win lane as Kled, you can use your ultimate to roam around the map and get your other lanes snowballing. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. Those 5 champions are, in my opinion, the most underrated, and a few sleeper OP picks in this patch that if you do know how to play those champions, then you should definitely look to pick them up if you have yet to already. So with that being said, guys, thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.